Hello, it's Nadine here, and I'm here with this week's episode of Life, Health, and the Universe. And today I'm joined by Meliors Simms. Meliors? It sounds
That's right,
French. Is it?
Meliors.
Is it
Yep,
French?
it's French, but it's medieval French, so you say
Ah,
the S on the end.
oh, very
Mm.
good. My name's French
Mhm.
also.
Great.
So Meliors, welcome, welcome. It was a bit of a rough start because we had some tech issues when we went to hit record last week. Couldn't hear each other. But you're here now, and I'm super grateful for you putting aside the time to join me today. So let me do a quick intro. So, without giving too much away, Meliors is also known as the Holistic Tooth Fairy. And you have a holistic approach to healing, helping your clients heal their bodies naturally, their teeth specifically, naturally. Let me read from my notes. You have an holistic approach that supports your body to express its natural capacity to remineralize enamel, regrow bone, and regenerate tissue. And that you basically you're here for anyone who is woo woo curious. I love that. And yeah, who kind of knows intuitively that there's more to oral health than just brushing your teeth and not eating sugar, right? So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this conversation. You are like, are you the only person who does this?
I think so. One of
Yes.
the few, yes.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
like, what a cool job. So let me hand over to you, Meliors. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us more. Like, mine was all a little bit garbled. I'm sure you'll have a much clearer intro.
Thank you, Nadine. Oh, it's a great honor to get to speak with you and your audience today. So I'm Meliors Simms, and I'm a natural oral health coach, and I work with clients all over the world because I do all my coaching on Zoom calls. And I help people avoid unnecessary dental procedures with a combination of um, uh, physical approaches to oral health, holistic nutrition, oral hygiene practices, and working a lot with the jaw, relaxing and activating the jaw and aligning the bite and so on. And then the other side of what I do is the metaphysical, which is what we're going to be talking about today. But in practice, it's really always a blend of the two. And I also, people do still end up needing the dentist. And so I help people have a better experience at the dentist as well, and overcome dental anxiety and dental trauma and make complicated dental decisions, and all of that side of it as part of my work as well.
Great. Thank you for joining us. It's going to be such a great conversation. Um, So I came across you, and I think, well, how lucky is this? It was an ad, so you can bet your bottom dollar that ads are working because it was your book that came up. I can't remember exactly where, but your book came up as a recommended book for me, um, either online or on my Kindle. And your book is The Secret Lives of Teeth: Understanding Emotional Influences on Oral Health. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I bought it on Kindle. um, I have in the past loved, actually, probably my first experience of that kind of metaphysical healing was through Louise Hay, who I came across when I was in my mid 20s. And so having something that was specific to teeth, I was like, well, this is cool. And I've had my own experiences with my teeth when I was, without going, this being a personal therapy session, I'll just give you some background. I had, when I was a kid, my two front milk teeth were kind of rotten when they came through or looked brown. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what that is, but I thought that was kind of interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
as a kid, I had a bit of an obsession with keeping my teeth really clean. When I
Mm-hmm.
was 9, I was standing behind a girl in the playground and she kicked up into a handstand and kicked me in the mouth and chipped one of my front teeth off. And I had them
Mm-hmm.
filed down. But I've had some stuff with gums in the past, and gum issues, and so I was like, oh, I wanted to dig into all these things. But my little boy, I thought this was like, what's going on here? He's 9, but when he was 8, which was almost exactly the same age that I was when I broke my tooth, he broke his.
Mm.
And I thought, oh, this is so, so cool. Like, I just was like, there's something going on with the teeth.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of like my background, and that's why I got hold of your book. And I've read through it, and I have to admit I haven't delved super deep, like, but I definitely see that there are correlations in emotional stuff that was going on in childhood and probably in adulthood as well, that have corresponded with those experiences in my mouth.
Mm.
There you
Yes.
go. What
Yeah, it's always fascinating, isn't it? When
yeah,
the child and the parent kind of mirror each other's oral health experiences, and even though the context might be different, it's like that pattern plays out through the teeth.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
amazing. Before we go any further and like into the metaphysical and how that all works, can you I've got two questions. The first one is like, why are we so scared of the dentist? Like everyone's story seems to be of a fear of the dentist.
Yes.
So, then I'd love to hear like how you actually got into this work. Like, what was going on for you
Mm. Mm.
when the penny dropped for you, and you were like, "There's something going on."
Sure. I think there's a number of reasons why people are so scared of the dentist, and some of it is like an inherent baked in kind of mammal back brain response to being belly up with someone in an authority position of authority with sharp
Ah,
tools leaning over your body. And I think the part of us that was, once a lizard or whatever is going, whoa, I'm a prey animal and this is
mm,
really scary.
yeah, right.
And
Good
so it's a
point.
very unconscious sort of nervous system response to the actual physical position. And then that, I think, is exacerbated and made worse when people have uh, painful or unpleasant or traumatic dental experiences, particularly because there is unfortunately quite a tendency of dentists to overdiagnose and overtreat. And there's been
Mm,
quite a bit of mainstream research into this, and it's surprise economic, the
yeah,
capitalist system strikes again. But what it does is it lays in these patterns of fear. And so even when you've got a really lovely, gentle, conservative dentist, then you can still have that kind of autonomic response, that nervous system response of all this
yeah,
is.
right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I just read your email. I think it came through. It came through in the last couple of days, maybe even this morning, about the dental profession and how that there is more awareness around dentists over diagnosing. And I've certainly experienced that before. Like, I've had no problems with my wisdom teeth at all. They're there. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we have nearly every dentist I go and see. Not that I see a lot, but over the past 20 years, oh, you should get rid of them. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually quite happy with my wisdom teeth. Thanks
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
Oh, but you don't need them.
Mm.
It's like,
Yeah.
well, but then I've seen other people who've had that experience,
Mm.
and their dentist has told them that they need to remove their wisdom teeth, and they have had. I remember one lady in particular, and she was like totally overwhelmed by the experience. She said she felt so different, like her facial structure changed. She was really impacted negatively, emotionally, from the experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah. I
brutal.
mean, some people do need to have, do have problems with the wisdom teeth that having them out makes it easier to resolve those problems. It's the easiest way to resolve those problems. But this kind of preventative approach of whip them out is definitely over applied. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we actually went to the dentist with our kids a couple months ago, and there's a new thing for kids, apparently, where they're putting some kind of cover on the top of the tooth, on top of the molars. Um,
yes.
so your kids have got great teeth, but we recommend you putting this stuff on. And I'm like, but you've just said that they've got great teeth. And they were like, oh, well, it's free.
Yeah.
And I'm
The,
like,
the research the
no.
research into those sealants is that
Yeah,
when they fall off or when they come off, 90% of previously healthy teeth that have had sealants develop decay or cavity. But they
bloody
might have
hell.
done anyway, but they might
Yeah,
not have.
yeah,
Probably
exactly.
wouldn't have.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm glad you resisted that temptation.
Yes. And I'm not here to, neither of us are here to bag out dentists, but we want to, but it's like, it's about bringing awareness to us about our own innate ability to heal, right?
Yeah, and our inner um, authority and integrity to make our own decisions about
Mm,
what dental treatment is needed and appropriate, and not just to get kind of bulldozed, because we're in
yeah,
that passive prey position, and the dentist says, well, you have to have this and this done to you. It's very hard to kind of think clearly and stand up for your rights, or even take time to like think about it for a few days
yeah,
when you're in that powerless kind of pose. So my
yeah.
new book that's coming out very shortly is called Calm and Confident in the Dental Chair, and it's really it's a workbook for adults to overcome dental anxiety, but also to make wise dental decisions, to be able to communicate powerfully and empathically with dentists, and to handle all of the kind of sensory overload and uncomfortable sensations and feelings we have about the dentist. Because I do believe that we need dentists, just
Mm.
we need them to like rein themselves in a little.
Yeah, that's right. It's like we also need, we need healthcare professionals, but yeah, we also need to take some responsibility for ourselves and also feel empowered to understand ourselves, right? And to make choices based on that, not just
Yes.
on like feeling, yeah, like you say, in that position with your mouth open and when they say, well, we're going to
Mm,
pull it out.
yeah. Yeah.
um, what's your, so you've been doing this for 8 years, 10 years?
Yeah, nearly 8 years of coaching.
Yeah.
But my sort of journey with
Mm,
holistic oral health began about 12 or 13 years ago, actually, when I was in the dental chair and I woke up from general anesthetic because I had such terrible teeth. I had such problems with my teeth, and I'd had so much dental treatment, some of which hadn't been necessary, and I'd been really traumatized. And so I was having panic attacks at the
mm,
dentist. And so when they needed to do what turned out to be my last root canal, thank God, I went under general anesthetic for the first time for that. And then I had
wow.
a panic attack under general, which I didn't know was possible, but
No.
it is. Yeah. So I woke up from that, and the dentist, who was a very nice dentist, told me I had to get my act together before they could finish the procedure. So that was really the point where I started taking responsibility, and not just doing whatever the dentist told me to do, following that mainstream advice. So I was very vigilant with my oral hygiene. I tried to be really healthy with my diet. I was also very kind of conscious of holistic health approaches with my whole body health. So I was used to working with metaphysical healing and herbs and homeopathics, and all of the kind of alternative approaches with the rest of my body, but I hadn't put it together with the issues I was having in my mouth. And so um, when I started looking into alternative approaches to oral health, it was so amazingly effective and eye-opening that I was just became a very enthusiastic um, researcher and experimenter on myself. And yeah, after a while, people around me just started asking me for advice all the time. And I thought, there seems to be a bit of a gap here. There certainly wasn't anyone I could go to and ask for advice. So maybe I could put my shingle out and offer myself as a coach. And within 3 months of starting up that as a side gig, I was able to quit my day job. So
Wow,
been doing
how
it ever
cool.
since.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Um, so going back to your own experiences, like you shared your story in the book, you've had how many root canals?
6.
And in hindsight, do you think that you needed any of them?
Mm. I probably, yeah, I needed some of them. I didn't
Okay.
need all of them.
Mm.
Yeah. There was the root canal where I went in with a really bad toothache and he drilled the wrong tooth. So the toothache was just there when the anesthetic woke up. So I had to go back and he drilled and root canaled the adjacent tooth. And then both of those root canals failed. I had them both redone. And
Oh
then
my
finally
God.
I said, just take them out. And so that's when I lost 2 molars.
Far out.
Um, so unnecessary root canal.
Yeah, wow. And root
Mm.
canal's not something you would go into lightly anyway, is it really? It's like
No, it's
intense.
really, you have to be pretty desperate to do a root canal.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you kind of started, can you talk us through what it means, that metaphysical, what does metaphysics mean?
So
Like, and how does it
metaphysical
connect
means
to our,
beyond the physical body.
yeah.
So where metaphysical influences on your teeth are emotional, energetic, psychological, environmental, ancestral, all of those non-physical influences that can maybe make you more vulnerable to the physical influences like a dysbiosis or unbalanced bacteria in your oral microbiome, or um, not eating the right kind of nutrients or being able to absorb the right kind of nutrients, even if you're eating
Mm,
them, so that your teeth and gums get the building blocks they need to repair and remineralize and regenerate. You're likely to be more vulnerable to those physical risks if you're already kind of vulnerable on that metaphysical level. So it's when people go looking for the root cause, I really go to the metaphysical for the root cause.
yeah, sure. So, an example of that, could you give us just an example for one of your root canals, what that might have been?
Yeah, so well, all of my root canals were either during a period of some form of homelessness or
Ah,
immediately afterwards. So either I was like couch surfing or I was like backpacking, long travel, or immigrating from one country to another. But there always is kind of very destabilized, not having my roots in a place, not feeling settled and at home. And so the roots in my teeth kind of became a physical embodiment of that lack of groundedness, that lack of being rooted in place.
wow, that's like, and I guess that you kind of go, well, that makes sense, right? It's like, yeah,
Yeah. I don't think if I hadn't had 6 root canals, I might not have made that connection. I really had to have enough to kind of
yeah.
be,
But
not just coincidence.
yes, but
Yeah.
I guess having that experience and putting those dots together, you can put the dots together more easily for other people, so they don't have to do
Yeah. Yeah.
that. um,
So I've worked with, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I've worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of people
Yes,
now, and it does get a lot easier for me to make those connections and
connections.
figure out, um, you know, is it some childhood trauma? Is it a family pattern that's been passed down through the generations? Is it your kind of current experience to do with work or family or relationships or identity or yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So when you said that you had uh, kind of when you were sorry. before you kind of got stuck into what was going on in your mouth, that you had quite a connection, and you used sort of alternative remedies and therapies and the metaphysical, you were aware of that kind of stuff for the rest of your body, and that you sort of got stuck into finding out as much as you could about the mouth. How did, like, you've also expressed that, like, you're the only person who does what you do. So how the hell
Yeah,
did you find the information?
yeah. Well, I kind of was finding little. I mean, I was obviously doing lots of Googling, so I was reading
Mm,
everything I find online. And there are some conversations certainly about the meridian system of
mm,
traditional Chinese medicine and its connection with the mouth. And so each part of the mouth is associated with a particular meridian channel, energy channel. And so that kind of gives you some clue. So that's where I started. Then you know, other people who sort of explore this in a kind of what's the word? It's not the main thing they do, but there's a blog post here and a blog post there kind of thing. Um, and then I discovered there's a couple of dentists in Europe who do not publish in English, so I had to use Google Translate to read these books.
wow.
That was challenging. Who do actually work in this area and did have quite a lot to say, and so that was very helpful. But I'd already really figured out a lot just from working with my clients. It was really out of the practice of lots of long, deep, sustained conversations with people about their history, their circumstances, and their symptoms, like leading people through guided meditations to connect with the energy of the particular symptom of their body, of you know and figuring it out just in practice. And so
Mm,
when I did discover that Dr. Caffin and Dr. Bayer from well, they're both French, uh they their frameworks kind of fitted in on top of what I had figured out already, rather than
okay.
being the foundation. Yeah.
Do
Mm.
people generally, if they're going to have a, a physical response to something, like a, is it a metaphysical response, or is it a, what do you call it? If they have a physical response, something that happens
Mm.
in their body,
Yeah.
um, like that represents something that's happened emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
do they get anything in their body as well, or does it generally just come up in the mouth?
Oh,
Do you see
absolutely.
those
Yeah,
correlations in the
yeah. So
body?
people will I mean, not everyone has their emotional or metaphysical responses as mouth symptoms. So a lot of people will, you'll get the gut problems, you'll get the skin problems,
Mm,
you'll,
yeah,
you'll get the back problems.
yeah.
It plays out. The whole body's all a big emotional field, essentially, energetic field. But what I have observed is that the people who do tend to get the significant and particularly chronic issues with oral health, that the underlying metaphysical influence will be something to do with silences, secrets, or suppressed emotions, the three S's.
Mm,
And it's because, well, my theory is because, um, we would, in a healthy circumstance, we would express ourselves through our mouth, through speech, right? And when we don't, the energy gets stuck in our mouth. It's like it builds up behind a dam of our lips not being open when we don't use our voice or speak our authentic truth or express our anger or grief or whatever it is. And then for those of us who have the teeth problems, that's what I look for, and it's almost inevitable. It'll be a secret, a silence, or a suppressed emotion, or some
ah,
combination of that. Yeah.
wow,
Mm.
wow. What was I going to say? Oh, so many things. So you've got these amazing charts that you've designed, and that people can download off of your website, which we'll put all the links of that. And so I've got one of them open at the moment, and it's like your emotional associations, and you've created archetypes around those, right? The representations of these archetypes. So was this all? You've talked about the meridians. That's what I was going to ask. Like the meridians are attached to the body as well, right? They go right through. That it's quite complex, but um, so we've got the meridians. So they kind of correlate with body parts, organs, and that sort of thing, don't they? And then the archetypes are
Mm.
kind of like that theme that they could be affecting. Is that right? Well, not really.
Yeah, the sort of the aspect of your life.
Mm.
So,
So, for example, I wrote down actually, I looked at the top teeth because the top teeth were the two teeth that when I was a little kid um,
mm,
came out brown, my milk
yeah,
teeth. And also, that's
mhm,
one that I got broken.
sure,
And
yeah,
top teeth, fear, shame, guilt, shyness. They're kind of like the
yeah.
emotional associations. Oh, and helplessness, deep exhaustion, but also associated with the kidney and the bladder.
Yeah, so in traditional Chinese medicine, each meridian has emotional associations with that energy channel, and they're named for particular organs. But when it's important to not be too tied to them
Mm,
being a physical connection with the physical anatomical organ like you would find in a if you went under surgery. It's more of an energetic um
yeah,
idea represented
yes,
by the organ. So the kidney
yes.
and bladder are associated with this kind of grief and shyness and
Mm,
helplessness and so on.
yeah.
So those are meridian associations. The tooth archetypes for those two top front teeth are on the left, it's the nurturer, and that can very much represent your relationship with your mother, particularly when you were very small and infant up to about toddler years. And on the right, it's the leader, and that can represent your relationship with your father when you're very small in those
Mm,
infant years. But I find that it's actually in real life, it's not necessarily that literal. Like when you, as a as the symptoms that you had were when you were an infant, it probably was quite literal for you. And we can
yeah.
talk about that in a second. But for, if you have problems with those front teeth when you're an adult, it may be not so much to do with your relationship with your actual birth parents or caregiver parents. It could be to do with your relationship with um, uh, someone who's a leadership figure, or your own experience of being a leader or being ambivalent about taking on leadership, or your own experience of being a nurturer or not.
Mm.
And so it's helpful to be as broad as
Yes,
possible
yes,
in your
yeah, yeah. I
interpretation.
get that.
Yeah,
And obviously what resonates for me might not resonate for you and vice versa. So like I could maybe say if it was in my adult front teeth, it could be about nurturing yourself as well, right?
exactly.
And
Yeah,
and yeah, if you're not taking care of yourself, then that could be a physical manifestation of something there.
yeah.
Yeah, right. Interesting. I can't remember what my question was with that. Oh, we were talking about the meridians. So
Yeah.
would you be able to, like, I don't want to, let me have a look at my notes.
Mm.
Okay. Can you talk us through some of the archetypes? Is that too much of
Yeah,
a
sure.
big,
Well, a general overview first is that these front teeth, the incisors, both central and lateral incisors, upper and lower, so the bottom four and the top four, they do tend to represent like your infancy, your childhood, the early years of your life, and the family environment that you grew up and what you were learning from that environment or from that family culture about how to be uh, about gender and how to grow up, how to be a girl or a boy, and how to grow up and be a man or a woman. And obviously that's not always a very straightforward thing for lots of people.
mm,
So that can play out in those front teeth as well as the particular family dynamics and your own experiences. Like, for me, my family immigrated from Canada to New Zealand when I was 3 years old. So that was a huge impact on my whole life and
Mm.
played out in my mouth as well. Uh, excuse me. Then the further back we go in the mouth, kind of the older the part of your life that's represented in. But first of all, we have a little sidestep for the canines, which are the eye teeth
Mm.
or the bicuspids. And those are about power dynamics. Then the premolars are about sort of your teenage years and establishing your identity and your preferences and all of those kind of developmental tasks of adolescence sort of are associated with those two teeth in each quadrant. And then the molars I call them the adulting teeth. So they'll often represent or embody challenges and responsibilities around home and work and yourself as a parent, yourself as a partner. And then the wisdom teeth are sort of outliers again in the way that the canines are. The wisdom teeth are about collective energies and ancestral, and like deep ancestral energies often will play out in those wisdom teeth. So
Wow.
that's the overview.
Mm.
And then each individual tooth has its archetype. So we talked about the nurturer and the leader up here on the front. Well, the bottom two opposing them are the doll tooth on the left and the beast tooth on the right. And those teeth kind of have quite a toddler kind of energy. Like the doll tooth of that toddler who's kind of shyly holding on to their mother's leg and peeking around, and it's got a real kind of people-pleasing, very good girl kind of energy to it, very much wanting to keep yourself safe by being compliant and
Mm.
obedient. Those are dull energies, whereas the beast is that kind of rambunctious, tantruming, uncivilized kind of boisterous 2 or 3 year old energy. And we both contain both of those.
Mm.
They're both in our mouth. They're both qualities that, but you will have a more or less straightforward or not relationship with those energies when you were that age, when those teeth, the baby teeth, were there, and those life experiences and those emotional patterns that you learned when you were little continue to play out through your life. And so they can play out in relation to these teeth. Though actually for most adults, it tends not to be these teeth or these bottom teeth that get they're not teeth that are particularly prone to decay so much as gum recession.
Ooh,
So
that's me.
yeah, yeah. So this is like the most common place to get gum recession, and gum recession metaphysically can represent feeling a lack of support.
Mm.
And so then we put the interpretation of the tooth archetypes for that part of the mouth together with the interpretation of lacking support, and you can start to tell a little story about what that means, what it might mean for understanding your past, and also what it might mean for understanding your life now, and how if you are, for example, a people pleaser who puts your own wants and needs so far in the background that you barely even know what you want and need, and so you don't ask for or even accept, let alone receive support,
Mm.
then that can be an area that's vulnerable. That recession is like the embodiment of that emotional pattern.
Wow.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, how interesting. And you've created these archetypes for every single tooth through your experiences, through your studies.
Mm,
Wow. Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So
Um,
that's the heart of my book,
yes,
the
yeah,
supervisor
yeah. And I
practice
would
roundup.
recommend it
Yeah.
to anyone, like even if you don't know if it's something that you believe in or not, like it's definite. It's so easy to read, and it's like if you've had tooth issues, right? Like just go, oh, I wonder what the top
Hmm.
tooth
Hmm.
number 16 represents, and you can kind of
Yeah.
read, and you can make those connections. Um, Once you have, so you've kind of talked around some of those archetypes, identifying how these things might be playing out in your life and therefore or in the past and therefore playing out in your mouth. What do you then do to help people heal?
Mm, mm. Well, it's different for everyone. So, um, I, like I say, it's always a combination of the physical support. So they're looking at nutrition and oral
Yeah.
hygiene and bite and so on, oral posture. But on the metaphysical front, it might be working with the inner child, or it might be working with your ancestors, or it might be working with sound healing. That's really a key part of my gum regeneration
Mm,
protocols, because it is possible to stabilize and regrow receding gums and even regrow from bone loss. And sound healing is a big part of that. Yeah, but it's kind of a storytelling approach, and so that's the theme that I wove through the book, is trying to explain how and demonstrate how to use healing stories as as a um, a container for healing yourself, your teeth and gums from this
mm.
metaphysical approach. But it needs to be within, you need to address the physical needs of your teeth and gums
Yes,
as
yeah, of
well.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of the most popular common tooth and gum symptoms that you support people with?
Um, well, I do a lot of work with people with receding gums, particularly if it's extended to bone loss, periodontitis,
Mm,
and all of that. So, I always get a little bit excited when someone comes to me because they're really in trouble. They've got their gums have receded to the point that their teeth are loose. They're really at risk of losing their teeth, because it's so thrilling when the protocols work and you can stabilize those teeth and save them. That's the best feeling in the
mm,
world.
mm,
Um, uh, I see a lot of people with tooth decay and cavities, people who are told that they need to either have a root canal or an extraction. And that's kind of the wake up call. They're like, no, I don't want to lose this tooth. There must be another way to resolve this problem without such a irreversible intervention. And it's not always possible, because by the time it's reached that point, the physical structure of the tooth is often very
mm,
compromised, but not always. Like sometimes it is possible to save a tooth from a prescribed root canal or extraction. So,
mm.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. And okay. So you've talked about the um, tooth hygiene and that sort of thing.
Mm.
What's your I'm just what's your experience with I feel like I've read either in your book or on your website somewhere about people being able to remineral, or I may have heard it being talked about somewhere else, being able to kind of remineralize, and yes, you do have it here, your teeth and
Yeah.
the enamel to, like, that you might go to the dentist and they say you need to have a filling, but
Mm.
we can we reverse that? Like a
Sometimes,
Okay.
yeah, particularly with smaller fillings,
Yeah.
with shallow
Mm,
fillings, I mean cavities,
yeah.
where it hasn't been filled yet, it those small shallow cavities will often reverse themselves with only a little bit of help, sometimes no help at all. Our teeth kind of um uh create cavities and then close them up on this small shallow level quite rapidly, quite a lot of the time, and often it's tied to stress levels, to be honest,
Okay.
because of the way the stress hormones, cortisol and so on, actually affect
Mm.
the remineralization processes that are ongoing all the time in a healthy system. Those get interrupted by
So it's kind
stress.
of so I think probably we're not really educated very well on the actual structure of our tooth and what it does, right? Because we have the root, we know, like we, it's almost like we're disconnected from them. They're this really important thing that can, you know,
Yeah,
change the way we look and how we
yeah.
feel, and
Mm.
but we've got blood flow going to our teeth, don't we?
Yes, yes.
And
So
there's
there's
this
three
whole
main
kind of
layers of the
like,
teeth.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yeah. So
like this, well, there's marrow, I guess. Like
it's pulp. So
it's
the
a,
inside, the
yeah.
center of the tooth is pulp, which is a mixture of blood and nerves and tubes carrying fluids into the tooth, minerals and vitamins and so on get carried. So they're coming up, the root of the tooth extends down into the jaw
Mm,
and connects with the tubules that run along the jaw inside the bone, and they will suck up essentially the fluids that the
mm.
tooth needs to be healthy. So that's all in the soft, very alive kind of heart of the tooth, which is called the pulp. And when a root canal is done, that's what they're
They
removing.
clean it
They're
out, right?
taking, they try and clean it out. Then on the outside of the root, but on the inside of the root, outside of the pulp, on the inside of the enamel, is a layer called dentin, which is a bit softer than enamel. It's more like bone, so it's a bit kind of chalky,
Mm.
and uh, and that also has lots of tubules running through it. And then on the top layer or the outside layer is the enamel, which is the hardest substance in the body. It's very, very dense. And in a healthy body, it's constantly renewing itself. It's very resilient. The dentinal flow, those fluids going into the tooth, are pushing out minerals that are like restoring the surface of the tooth as it's eroded through the day with eating food and particularly sugar and acidic food, carbohydrates and things, or just the bacteria in your mouth if you've got a lot of unhealthy kind of oral microbiome that erodes the enamel. Well, if you've got good dentinal flow, that'll rebuild the enamel just as fast.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing, isn't it? Because I think that when we, you know, well, our general education is that it's all about what we put in and it's about brushing and stuff. But in fact, it's
Mm.
they heal from the inside out, from the sounds of things. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is kind of reassuring.
Yes,
Well,
they're very
if we're
sensitive to
taking care of
hormones.
the, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
What
it,
about the like oral health in general? Like you talked
mm,
about oral microbiome, and I'll tell you, the dentist who I used to go to, we moved, so I'd gone to him
mm,
for quite a long time, and I do have receding gums at the bottom. And he said, "Look, it's just something you just need to come and have your oral hygiene." And I was like, "What is it?" Like, because I never have any fillings, like, and there's never any problems, but my gums. And he's like, "Oh, you basically, it's either one or the other. People either have uh, weak gums or they have weak teeth. Generally,
mhm.
don't have both." And he said it's just from breathing. Which I was like, "Well, I'm damned then," because I breathe.
Yeah, yeah.
I have since focused on closing my mouth more
Mm.
because there's an effect of like the exposure of, you know more. Tell us, tell us what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
say.
So the oral microbiome
Yeah,
is
that's it.
everyone's got about 50 or so different kinds of bacteria living in our mouths, billions of them in total, but about, like 50 different strains. And there'll be a slightly different combination of strains. So it's unique, almost like a fingerprint in terms of what's the makeup of your oral microbiome. It's established almost entirely at birth,
Mm.
and then will adjust, particularly in the first 3 or so years of life, depending on the food and water that you're exposed to. And if anyone's kissing you on the mouth when you're a little baby, then possibly you get exposed to their oral microbiome through that.
Mm.
Then we're much less likely to take on any new permanent residents of our oral microbiome through later childhood and adulthood, though we might. Now, what can happen is that of those 50 or so types of bacteria, there might be, there's 8 strands in total in the world that are like the problem children of the oral microbiome. And most of us will only have like 1 or 2 of those problem children in our oral microbiome. And most of the time they're very quiet and well behaved because they're just 1 of 50. They're not dominant. But if you're a mouth breather, if
Mm.
you eat a lot of sugar or acidic foods, or you are very stressed out, or one of the other possible reasons that you can get out of balance, then one of those problem children type of oral bacteria can become dominant. And so if that is the type of oral bacteria that causes gum disease, then that will be your downfall. If it's the kind that causes decay, then that will be your downfall. Luckily, most people don't have both
Right.
dominating at the
Yeah.
same time. But some people do, unfortunately. It is possible to have both teeth and gum problems. Hooray!
And so, if our microbiome in our mouth, I think you said we have it from birth and it pretty much doesn't change,
Mm,
and it's causing gum problems. Is
yeah.
it the microbiome, or is it the deep emotional trauma?
Well, it's a
And can you? Oh,
multiple factors.
yeah,
So they accumulate, and particularly the older you get, the more factors will be at play.
yeah.
So you'll have, your life history of emotional patterns, of family inheritance, of stress and trauma and whatever else is in your story that's unique to you. You'll have your particular oral microbiome and how responsive it is to your lifestyle factors. So if you are a mouth breather and eat sugar all the time, then that affects the balance of the particular oral microbiome that you got at birth. And that might change through your life as your lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
Then your brushing habits. So like your gums can be really, and your teeth to a lesser extent, really sensitive or vulnerable to like brushing too hard with too hard a bristle brush, or using an electric toothbrush incorrectly, or using a really abrasive toothpaste, or any number of things we can put in our mouth. Um, we we get sick and our bodies stop being able to absorb uh, the nutrients we need, or we change our diet and we're not getting
Mm.
the nutrients we need. We clench our jaws, we grind our teeth, we get orthodontic work and drag those teeth out of position. We have our wisdom teeth extracted, or another tooth extracted, for orthodontic reasons, or because it's unhealthy. And that upsets the whole environment, and is
Mm.
another factor. And so these accumulate over time, and particularly as you get older, there's just more and more factors, and eventually the just system kind of tips
Mm.
over.
Mm.
But to my mind is always the energetic, emotional, metaphysical, underlying whatever physical factors.
Well, yeah, I think also from from a lifestyle behavior point of view, often the choices we make in our lifestyle, like mouth breathing, stress
mm,
related, right?
mm,
Um, and eating bad or unfavorable food, let's not call it bad food, eating unfavorable
mm,
foods can often be associated with an emotional response to something, or like not
yeah,
taking care of yourself. So it kind of makes sense that that has a deeper connection with what's going on in your mouth as well.
mm,
And I
mm,
guess just like we all have equilibrium in our bodies, in our lives, but if you tip the balance one way or the other because of different behaviors or
mm.
circumstances, then that can be the thing that can upset what's going on. Um, what we're getting close to the end of our hour. There's a couple of other things, if you're okay to answer. I'd love. You mentioned that you. It sounds kind of cruel, but not, that you love it when people come to you with really bad things. Because you know
I
you
don't
can
love it for
heal you
them.
because you know you can heal because you know you can
Yeah,
heal them.
yeah.
And I'm the remineralizing. I don't feel like I've said that word right once. Remineralizing enamel, regrowing bone, and regenerating tissue. And you don't
Mm,
promise to do those things, but you do offer those things as a possibility that you have seen those things happen. Are there any
mm.
particular stories that stand out for you that you would be able to share with us?
Um, well, there's one I wrote about in um my
In
book,
the
which
book.
is, yeah, which is um actually that's not really a remineralization story. Um, I've seen a client come in with bone loss, showing in it. They just had a CT scan and it showed, severe bone loss, putting the stability of this particular tooth at risk. And we, did the energetic work on and understanding the sort of emotional origin story of this tooth, and did the work with the sound healing, worked on nutrition, worked on oral hygiene practices, and layered in all of that support. And then a few months later she went back and she saw the periodontist again and got another CT scan, and the scan showed that the bone density had increased, and that was one of the most
Wow.
tangible kind of proofs of this
Yeah.
work. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was very exciting. And then that tooth was, really stable, and she was able to keep it. It was always going to be an area of vulnerability, but she wasn't in that acute situation anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. I think that that's one thing that I would really love our listeners to understand is that the possibilities are there. It's
Mm,
not as cut and dry as you go to the dentist. If there's something wrong, you get your tooth pulled out, or you go through these, specific procedures, wisdom tooth extractions, gum. What do they call?
Crafts,
Yeah, gum
root
grafts.
training. There's a whole catalogue of horrific things they do to gums.
Yes, it's no wonder people are scared.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that way. And in
No.
fact, there is like our bodies are quite incredible, and our teeth aren't. Well, our teeth are part of that. And
Yeah.
just like we can, choose preferable foods, and our body responds in kind, so does our mouth. Not just
Mm,
don't think about just what you see on the surface, but like what's going on in the inside. I think it's just phenomenal, and so cool that you're doing this. Um, Now, I saw that you have, and I think it would be great to share this with the listeners if they're interested. You have some kind of call, don't you, that you do? Do you have
oh
like a
yeah, every
free?
week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every week on Insight Timer, which is a meditation app that you can download onto your phone for free.
Okay.
And so I do these live calls. It's Tuesday morning New Zealand time that I do them, which is Monday evening for a lot of the world.
Yeah.
And I call them messages from your mouth. And I'll essentially do like a brief reading for anyone who comes on the call and asks, where, you know, you describe your symptom and I check the tooth archetypes. I might talk about meridians. I tune into my intuition and we have a chat about what the underlying story that symptom with that tooth or gum area might be telling. So
Yeah,
yeah,
great.
anyone's welcome to come along. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're good
cool.
fun.
We'll put the link. I think
Yeah.
is the link for that on your website? We can include that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Perfect. And
Mhm.
obviously the book, which is a really, it has got some stories. It's got your own story. It's got some stories of clients that you've worked with, but also a really great reference book that you can kind of go to if you've got a toothache or you've had something in the past and you're like, I wonder if that had anything to do with anything. You
Yes.
can kind of go in and have a look and yeah, do some digging around. It's fascinating stuff
Mm.
and
Mm.
yeah, brilliant. I'm so glad that we got this conversation together. Thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything that you would like to add as we head towards the end of our session?
Well, thank you so much for having me on this. It's been a wonderful, fun conversation to have. And just also, I've got my second book coming out probably by the
Yay!
time this interview goes live.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, it's called Calm and Confident in the Dental Chair, an adult workbook to relieve dental anxiety.
Brilliant.
So, yeah,
Okay, we'll put
and
all of that
I've got,
info in the notes as well.
yeah.
And I believe we are celebrating the 1 year anniversary of your first book.
Yes, it came out a year ago last week, and it's done really well. Yeah, like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
I do advertise it on Amazon, and so it's been a really good way to sort of get in front of people that might not stumble across my website. I don't do
yeah.
any
Social
social
stuff.
media to speak of, so there's Insight Timer and there's the book. That's the ways to find me.
Fabulous.
But there's a lot of free resources on my website,
Yeah,
so anyone who's curious, holistictoothfairy.com, you can go. There's like 60 or 70 different articles and things you can download and classes you can listen to, meditations and all sorts. So come
brilliant.
and check it out.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. It's been really great to meet you. I really appreciate your time. Keep
Thank
doing what
you.
you're doing. I'm going to get the next book.
Yeah, I will.
Thanks,
Okay.
Meliors.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.